No invite to Christmas? Well, no more free law school. Story time. Left out of Christmas because I'm just a plumber. So I cut off my sister's law school funds. Now she's begging. Turns out I'm better off without her. I've been holding onto this story for a while, unsure how to even start explaining this mess. I guess introductions are in order. I'm 32, single, and I run my own plumbing business. Yeah, not exactly glamorous according to some people, especially certain family members. But truthfully, I make great money, love what I do, and there's real satisfaction in solving problems, even if those involve literal crap. My younger sister, Amanda. She's 26, currently in law school, which, by the way, I've been fully funding. Yep, her entire tuition, courtesy of me. Ew. And her boyfriend, a hotshot doctor at the local hospital. A real charmer, but we'll get to him in a minute. Where did it all fall apart? About a week before Christmas, I get a phone call from my mom. Now, here's the thing. My mom never calls just chat. It's always because she needs something, or there's some family drama that needs fixed, usually involving money. But this call felt different. She had this weird, hesitant tone, like she was about to tell me someone died. Then she drops the bomb. I'm not invited to Christmas this year. No warning, no discussion, just straight up uninvited. At first, I thought I misheard her. Maybe she meant they were changing plans or something, but no. She goes on about how it might be better if I skip Christmas because they want to keep things comfortable for everyone. I'm sitting there, Lord, what just happened? Christmas had always been a family thing. Even when I was busting my butt just to build my business from scratch, we still made time for Christmas together. Sure, my family had always been wired about my job, and so weird. They love the money I bring in, but God forbid they admit to their friends what I actually do for a living. So I pushed her for the real reason. She danced around the topic, mumbling something about appearances and keeping things professional, but she wouldn't come clean. Later that day, I got the full story from my cousin Sarah. She overheard Amanda and my mom talking earlier in the week. Turns out my lovely sister had told my parents she didn't want me at Christmas because apparently I wouldn't fit in with her or her boyfriend's professional image. Yeah, let that sink in. The sister whose law school I've been paying for was embarrassed to have me at Christmas because I'm a plumber. She was worried about how her fancy doctor boyfriend would react to sitting next to someone who works with her hands. The more I thought about it, the more things clicked. Like how Amanda never invited me to any of her law school functions, even though I was the one funding them, might I add. Or how she was always dodging the question when her friends asked what her brother did. Or how, despite dating this guy for nearly a year, she never once introduced me. But honestly, the worst part wasn't even Amanda. It was that my parents agreed with her. They genuinely thought it was fine to leave me out because my career might make Amanda's boyfriend uncomfortable. The same parents who've relied on me financially since I was 18. The same parents who watched me build a business from nothing. The same parents who never batted an eye when I stepped up time and time again. And now, I'm not even good enough to sit at the table. Meanwhile, I'd been footing the bill for their golden child's law school education without so much as a complaint. My mom tried to soften the blow, throwing out lines like, well, honey, you know how these professional circles are. Maybe next year, once you've advanced your career a little bit more. What does that even mean? I run my own business. I have employees. I pull in 6 figures doing honest, hard work. But apparently, because I don't slap on a suit and tie every morning, I'm not quite advanced enough. I spent that entire day fuming. Not the kind of angry where you yell and throw stuff. The cool, quiet kind of mad where everything clicks and you realize your family, especially your sister, has been happily taking advantage of you while being ashamed of you the entire time. And that's when I made my decision. If I wasn't good enough to be seen at Christmas, then my money sure as hell wasn't good enough to bankroll her law degree. I mean, how poetic would it be if her boyfriend found out that her fancy law career was being funded by the plumber she pretended didn't exist? But trust me, baby, this is where it starts getting real fun. Once I decided I'd had enough, the real circus began. And let me tell you, karma's a beast. Whenever it comes wrapped around in student loan debt. After realizing I was axed from Christmas because my blue-collar career might offend her boyfriend's delicate sensibilities, I had a strange level of calm. You know that moment when you're just so angry, you just stop and think. That was me. I spent the night scrolling through old messages and conversations with Amanda, and man, the red flags were everywhere. I'd just been too blind, or maybe even naive, to notice it and to connect the dots. Case in point, last spring, she threw a big party to celebrate finishing her first year of law school, the same year I'd paid every cent of her tuition. Think I got an invite? No. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, said it was just a small thing with her study group. Turns out, I later saw photos on Facebook. It was a huge bash at some swanky downtown restaurant, or the time she needed a new laptop. Now, I know my way around computers. I offered to go shopping with her, but she insisted I just wire her the money instead. Said she was too busy to meet up. Looking back, I get it now. She didn't want her plumber brother seen with her in the Apple store. It's honestly kind of pathetic when I think about it. Anytime she needed something, a tuition payment, a new gadget, extra spending cash, she had no problem blowing up her embarrassing brother's phone. But when it came to acknowledging me in her polished new life, radio silent. Then I decided to dig deeper. Perks of having a cousin still looped into the family group chat. Turns out, Amanda had been laying the groundwork for this Christmas exclusion for weeks. She told my parents her boyfriend, Craig, yes, that's his name, came from some fancy, prestigious family. She was so worried about making the right impression that even having a plumber brother could supposedly hurt her professional image. Elitist nonsense, right? Want to hear the kicker? My cousin Sarah, God bless her messy, drama-loving soul, forwarded me screenshots straight from the family chat. In Amanda's own words, and I quote, I just don't want Craig to think our family isn't, educated. It could affect how his family sees me, and they've got so many connections in the legal world. Educated? The nerd. I wanted to fire back right then and there. The only reason she's getting an education is because her so-called uneducated plumber brother has been paying her $43,000 tuition bill, thousands a year, just to keep her in school. But I keep quiet. I had something brewing in my head, a strategy that required patience. Sometimes you've got to gotta let the long game play out. The more I mulled it over, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Christmas. It was about a pattern. Years of being treated like the family's dirty little secret. They had no problem cashing in my dirty plumber money. But heaven forbid anyone actually acknowledge how I earned it. And here's something funny. Most people don't realize. Plumbing isn't as simple as people think. We have to study years of apprenticeship, licensing exams, and constant education to stay updated on new regulations and tech. I've probably spent more hours learning about water systems and construction code than Amanda ever did on tort law. But because I use my hands for a living, they all act like I'm some dropout who couldn't hack it in the professional world. The reality, I choose plumbing because I'm darn good at it. I saw an opportunity. I went straight into an apprenticeship after high school, worked my way up, earned all of my licenses, and eventually opened my own company. Now I've got 3 trucks on the road, a couple full-time employees, and more work than I can keep up with. But to my family, I'm still the embarrassing brother who unclogs toilets. And I keep thinking, all those nights I worked extra overtime, all those extra jobs I took on just so I could keep up with Amanda's tuition payments. Times I skipped buying things for myself or didn't contribute as much to my retirement fund because family came first. Meanwhile, Amanda was actively hiding my existence from her previous boyfriend and his bougie family. Then Sarah, my cousin, hit me with another gem. Turns out Craig's family, yeah, they don't care about any of that. His uncle is a successful contractor who built their family home. They wouldn't look down on me for being a plumber. Amanda had just assumed they judge me because she judges me. Classic projection. I sat with all of this for a few days, quietly watching the family group chat through Sarah. They booted me out weeks ago, by the way, supposedly to keep the Christmas drama to a minimum. Amanda was going on and on, bragging about how excited she was to host Craig at Christmas, how his family had connections at all the big law firms in town, how this could be her ticket to landing a prestigious summer internship. No one said a darn word about me. Not to my parents, not anyone. Nobody thought to mention, hey, maybe it's not cool to freeze out the guy footing her tuition bill. Everyone was just thrilled about Amanda cozying up to Craig's influential family. That's when it clicked. Exactly what I needed to do. If they wanted to act like they didn't have a plumber in the family, I figured I'd gladly help them make that fantasy real, starting with Amanda's tuition payments. After sitting on all of this for a few days, I knew it was time to make my move. But here's the thing. I wasn't about to send some angry, dramatic text. I wanted to be calculated. I needed to do it in a way they couldn't twist or make me out to be the villain. By the way, is their favorite pastime. So I waited, specifically until Amanda's next tuition payment was almost due. It was about 2 weeks out, and she always got super antsy when it came close. Normally, she'd start throwing out subtle hints. Oh, the school keeps sending emails about the payment, or just wanted to double check the deadline. This time, radio silence. She must have figured I'd just send the money as usual, even after cutting me out of Christmas. Quick background, I had been paying her tuition directly to the school via their online portal. Amanda set it up herself when she first enrolled and handed me all the login info, basically treating me like her personal ATM. Convenient for her, right? So I logged in, and there it was. Her spring semester bill, $21,500. That's when it really hit me. How much I'd been shelling out while she actively hid me from her boyfriend. You know how many unclogged toilets you have to fix to rack up that much cash? Spoiler alert, a lot of hell more than you think. I didn't text her. I wanted to hear her voice when I dropped the bomb. So I called. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding mildly irritated, like I was wasting her precious time. Hey, she said in that clipped tone, all business, no warmth. Can you make it quick? I'm kinda in the middle of something. Oh, sorry, I replied, sounding casual. Just wanted to talk about your tuition payment. It's coming up soon, right? Suddenly, her tone shifted. All sweetness, polite interest. Oh yeah, thanks for remembering. It's due on the 15th. You're still good to cover it, right? Actually, I said, I've been thinking about what you told mom and dad. You know, about Christmas, how having a plumber brother might embarrass you in front of Craig and his family. Dead silent. You could practically hear her mental gears grinding, trying to figure out how to spin it. Who told you that? She blurted after a pause. Does it matter? I asked. Is it true or not? More silence. Then she switched to damage control mode. Listen, you don't get it. Craig's family, they're super particular about appearances. His dad's a judge. His mom's on all these charity boards. I just thought it'd be easier if you pretended your brother didn't exist. I cut her off, finishing her last sentence for her. That's not fair, she shot back. I never said that. I need them to take me seriously. If I want to have a real future in law, you know how these circles work. At that point, I couldn't help but laugh. Guess I wouldn't know how these elite circles worked, I said. After all, I'm just a plumber, right? But I do know exactly how much I've paid for your law school. Want me to break it down? She tried to cut in, but I kept going. First year, $43,000. Second year's first semester, $21,500. Then there's the extras. Your new laptop, your textbooks, that special prep course you had to have. By my count, that totals close to $77,000. All of it, I added, covered by your so-called embarrassing plumber brother. Why are you acting like this? She whined. You know how important Craig's family is for my future. They have connections at all the best firms. Oh, I asked. And having a plumber brother would ruin that, huh? Even though that plumber brother is the reason you're even in law school to begin with? You promised you'd help me, she said, voice shaking. You told me you'd support my dreams. Yeah, I answered, when you were proud to call me your brother. But if I'm too much of an embarrassment to sit at Christmas dinner, then my money's probably too embarrassing to pay your tuition too. And man, the noise she made after that, like someone stepped on a cat's tail. You can't do that, she screeched. The payment's due in 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do? I shrugged, feeling surprisingly calm. Not my problem. Maybe ask Craig. I'm sure his fancy doctor salary can cover it. Or is my dirty plumber money the only kind you're willing to spend? That's when the tears started. Full-blown sobbing, theatrical as hell. Please, she begged. I'll tell mom and dad I was wrong. You can come to Christmas. Just don't do this to me. I stayed quiet for a second before answering. No thanks. I don't want to crash your perfect Christmas or humiliate you in front of Greg's family. In fact, I don't want anything to do with you or any of you anymore. I paused, let that sink in, then finished. Consider this my final contribution to the family. That's too ashamed of me to invite me to dinner. And I hung up while she was still mid-sob, blocked her number immediately, poured myself a drink, waiting for the inevitable fallout. Didn't take long. First, Mom. She called 5 times in a row before I finally picked up. The second I answered, she launched into classic guilt trip mode. Tears, whining about how I was destroying the family and ruining Amanda's future over what she called a silly misunderstanding. A silly misunderstanding? I asked. She literally told you she's ashamed of my job. The same job that's been footing her tuition. Mom tried to explain. She didn't mean it like that. You know how Amanda is. She gets caught up in appearances sometimes. She actually looks up to you. I nearly spit out my drink. She looks up to me? I laughed. She banned me from Christmas because she's embarrassed by me. How exactly is that admiration? Mom changed tack. Think about what this could do to her relationship with Craig, she pleaded. His family could open new doors for her career. Oh, we're talking about Craig now? I interrupted. Funny how his family's opinion matters so much, but your own son, the one paying for Amanda's law school, isn't even good enough for a seat at Christmas dinner? She started blubbering again, but by then, I was done listening. Mom pulled her usual tactic, trying to guilt me by saying I was taking things too personally. Classic move, making it seem like I was overreacting when they were the ones acting shady. Then, my dad called, and as expected, he jumped straight to anger. He immediately launched into a tirade, accusing me of being selfish, spiteful, and reckless for jeopardizing Amanda's future. Real father of the year behavior, right? I cut him off. Let me get this straight. You think I'm the problem for not wanting to throw thousands of dollars at someone who's ashamed to admit she's related to me? Seriously? Make that make sense. We've raised you to be better than this, he snapped back. Family supports family. I couldn't help laugh. Is that what you had in mind when you all decided to cut me out of Christmas? Was that the whole supportive family plan? He tried to backpedal, talking about how sometimes sacrifices had to be made for the good of the family. Apparently, that included sucking up to Craig in hopes he'd give Amanda some career boost. But the thing that stuck with me through all those calls, no one apologized. Not once. It wasn't about how they treated me. It was about how I was wrong for standing up for myself. How I was the one being petty, prideful, and vengeful. Then came the reinforcements. My aunt rang me up to say how disappointed she was. My uncle texted telling me to man up and be the bigger person. Even cousin Sarah, yes, the same one who exposed Amanda's lies, messaged me saying maybe I was going a little too far. Funny thing though, not a single one of them offered to pitch in to help pay Amanda's tuition themselves. And then came the real kicker. Amanda actually told Craig everything, probably assuming he'd swoop in and offer to cover her fees. But according to Sarah, Craig's reaction wasn't quite what she expected. Apparently, Craig went dead quiet. He started asking questions. Why hadn't Amanda ever mentioned having a brother? Why hadn't they met? Why was her brother the one footing her law school bills? Turns out, Craig's family wasn't nearly as elite as Amanda thought. His uncle, the guy who built their family house, started out as a plumber before becoming a contractor. Craig himself spent summers working alongside him. When Amanda tried spinning her reasoning, talking about appearances, social circles, all that nonsense, Craig wasn't impressed. He flat out told her he couldn't believe she'd hide her own brother, especially one who'd done so much to support her. The next day, Craig sat her down and told her he needed to rethink their relationship. Said the way she treated me made him question who she really was. Meanwhile, my phone was blowing up non-stop. Mom flip-flopped between sobbing and pleading. Dad switched from raging and threatening. Amanda kept calling from random numbers since I'd blocked her main one. Eventually, I just turned the phone off altogether. It was all about how I was ruining everything because I refused to just shut up and pay like their obedient little ATM. But I was done being their ATM. If standing up for myself made me the villain in their story, so be it. It sure beat being their doormat. A few days later, Craig stopped by Amanda's apartment. I'm sure she thought he was there to patch things up. Instead, he broke up with her. He said it point blank. He couldn't stay with someone who would treat their own brother like hot garbage, especially not someone who'd sacrificed so much to help her succeed. He told her it made him question her values and who she really was. Amanda lost everything that day. Her relationship, her law school payment, and whatever carefully curated image she thought she had. She called me again, this time crying, screaming, and blowing up my phone from yet another random number. At this rate, she's had more burner phones than a small-time drug dealer. She was hysterical, accusing me of ruining her entire life, claiming Craig dumped her because of it. That her world was crashing down, and it was all I just laughed. No, sis, I told her. Craig left after seeing who you really are. All I did was stop helping you cover it up. That's when she lost it even more. She threw out every threat she could think of. She swore she'd accuse me of assaulting her back in high school, that she'd report my business for fraud to the BBB, that everyone would know what an awful brother I was. I told her flatly, go ahead, tell people. The brother who's been quietly footing your entire education is somehow the bad guy. See how well that works out. Of course, the threats didn't stick long. She switched gears, crying, begging, saying she couldn't afford law school without me, that she'd have to drop out, lose all of her friends, that her whole life would fall apart. Maybe, I said, maybe you should have thought of that before deciding I was way too much of an embarrassment to acknowledge. Then, I hung up. Turns out, after Craig walked out, Amanda completely unraveled. According to cousin Sarah, she spiraled hard, showing up at my parents' house at all hours, crying about how everything was ruined. Apparently, she told her law school friends that her boyfriend Craig was going to handle her tuition. So when he dumped her, her whole plan collapsed. The deadline for her tuition bill was fast approaching, and she still had no back. She scrambled to apply for emergency loans, but surprise, those take time to process, and she didn't have any time. She left it way too late. On top of that, she needed a cosigner, but our parents' credit is in shambles. Gee, wonder why, considering how much they've always tried to live like Big Shot. Then I get a 911 text from Sarah. Amanda just posted she's on her way to your shop. She's unhinged. Watch out. Barely had time to alert my team before Amanda stormed through the front door like a tornado in heels. Hair a mess, makeup smeared, completely maniacal. She looked like the poster child for a bad reality show meltdown, except this wasn't TV. It was real life, and she was my sister. She immediately started shrieking, "How could you do this to me?" in front of my entire entire crew and a few startled customers. I'm your sister. You're supposed to take care of me. I tried to calmly get her to step outside, or at least lower her voice, but she was hellbent on making a scene. You're destroying my life because your feelings got hurt? You're so selfish, she screamed. That when one of my clients, a sweet older lady who's been with us for years, stood up. She looked Amanda square in the face and asked, is this the brother who's been paying for your education? Amanda froze, caught off guard. That's none of your business, she snapped. But the woman just shook her head and replied, you made it everyone's business the moment you barged in here yelling like this. And let me tell you something, where I'm from, biting the hand that feeds you never ends well. The expression on Amanda's face, priceless. You could see she wasn't just being used to getting called out, especially not by someone outside the family. Then came the waterworks, full-blown Oscar-worthy sobbing. You don't get it, she wailed. He's doing this just to punish me. He's sabotaging my future because he's jealous of my success. I actually laughed. What success, Amanda? I asked. The success of getting dumped by your boyfriend? The success of maybe dropping out of law school? The success of publicly humiliating yourself in front of my staff and customers? At least I'm actually out here building something real. That's when she blurted out, at least I'm not just playing with pipes all day like some, and then she stopped herself, probably realizing she was seconds away from insulting plumbing while standing in a plumbing business surrounded by plumbers. That's when Mike, my senior tech big guy, been with me since day one, walked up kindly and said, ma'am, I think it's time you leave. Your brother's pipe playing has kept my family fed for 5 years. It paid for my kids' braces, my wife's car, and it looks like it covered your law school too. So maybe a little respect. Amanda glanced around and it finally clicked for her. No one was siding with her. Everyone stared at her like she lost it, because frankly, she had. She made one last desperate threat. Fine, I'll expose you. I'll post all over social media what kind of brother you really are. I just smirked. Be sure to include the part where you banned me from Christmas because you're ashamed I'm a plumber, but kept cashing my tuition checks. People will love that. She stormed out, but not before knocking over our clipboard, flipping a sign, and kicking over the business card stand. Real classy exit. The elderly lady who had been watching walked over to me afterwards, patted my arm, and said, my late husband was a plumber, put 3 kids through college. None of them ever acted ashamed of how he did it. Then she looked me square in the eyes and said, you're doing the right thing, honey. Sometimes family needs to learn respect is a two-way street. Of course, after that scene, I had to sit down with my crew and explain everything. They were all super supportive. Mike even joked his family Thanksgiving sounded tame in comparison, but Amanda wasn't done. She decided to go scorched earth, calling every relative she could reach, spinning the sob story about how her evil brother was ruining her life out of pure spite. Now, family drama, everyone wants in, but no one wants to actually help. Aunt Karen was first, and yes, her name is actually Karen, and she lives up to it. She called to scold me, lecturing me about family loyalty and how selfish I was. This is the same aunt who borrowed $5,000 from me 3 years ago for emergency dental work and never paid it back. It went like this. How could you do this to your sister? She demanded. She's trying to better herself. Funny, I said. I don't recall you chipping in to pay for her law school. Also, you still owe me for those teeth, remember? Dead silence. That's different, she huffed. How dare you bring that up? Different how? I asked. Because every time someone in this family talks about helping, it's all hot air until the bill actually shows up. She hung up. Guess that hit harder than the dental work. Next up, Uncle Steve, Dad's brother, the wannabe big shot, always bragging about his investments, but never picking up the check. He tried the same guilt trip. Think of it as an investment in Amanda's future, he told me. When she's a successful lawyer, she'll help you out. I nearly fell over laughing. Oh, really? I said. You mean the same sister who couldn't even invite me to Christmas because I'm a plumber is gonna help me out one day? Sure. Tell me another. Well, he said, maybe if you helped her finish, she could pay you back. Great idea, I replied. Why don't you lend her the money then? If it's such a great investment, why don't you front the money? I asked. You're always bragging about your amazing portfolio. Here's your chance to invest in family. Suddenly, he had to go. Funny how that keeps happening, huh? The best part, not one person who called to guilt trip me offered to help Amanda themselves. Oh, they all had opinions on how I should spend my money. But when it came to opening their own wallets, everyone clammed up. I'm done. But I promised updates, so here's the last one. Final update. My sister banned me from Christmas because I'm just a plumber, so I stopped funding her law school. Hey everyone, figured I'd post one final update. Since so many of you have been asking about what happened after the fallout, a mutual friend told me Amanda showed up at Craig's parents' house, completely uninvited, trying to plead her case. She gave them the sob story about losing everything and needing help. What she didn't mention, that she'd been hiding her plumber brother because she thought he wasn't good enough. Craig was there, and of course, set the record straight. His father, who's a judge, apparently looked her dead in the eye and said, young lady, if you're aiming to be a lawyer, you should know trying to manipulate people with half-truths isn't the best way to start your career. Yeah, ouch. In the end, she had to drop out of law school. She couldn't get private loans without a cosigner. And surprise, nobody in the family was willing to stick their neck out after what happened. Even grandma stepped in, telling them all they should be ashamed of themselves. After that, my parents stopped asking me for anything. Amanda, she's working as a paralegal at some small firm now, telling everyone it's temporary until she gets back to law school. But we all know that's not happening. As for me, business is booming. I've expanded to 2 more trucks and hired 4 more employees. Funny twist, I still grab beers now and with Craig and his uncle Mike. Turns out they're great guys once there's no family drama involved. My parents tried reaching out around Thanksgiving, but only because they needed help with their mortgage. I politely declined, telling them maybe they should hit up their successful lawyer daughter instead. Oh wait, they don't have one. Honestly, I feel better than I have in years. No more pretending. No more being the family's ATM. No more tiptoeing around who I am or what I do for a living. Just me, my thriving business, and real friends who don't give a darn about how I earn my money. Thanks, Reddit. Sometimes you just need strangers on the internet to remind you you're not crazy for standing up to yourself. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up. Appreciate all the rewards passwords into everyone DMing me about plumbing services. Sorry, gotta stay anonymous. To those saying I ruined my sister's life, nah, she did that herself. I just stopped footing the bill. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe to Reddit Family Karma and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more shocking real-life stories happening around you. Thank you.